Hey everybody, welcome to the video. We are going short track racing this weekend at Richmond, Virginia for the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond Raceway. This will take place on Sunday, April 3rd around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And I'm very excited for this. I love short flat tracks as far as DFS and fantasy goes. They have been quite kind to me in recent years. And plus this next gen car has delivered each and every single week, whether it be at a road course, oval, short flat track, a super speedway. The racing each weekend has been awesome. We've seen a new winner each and every single week, and we're seeing new faces in victory lane. It's not just Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin over and over and over again. We're getting new faces like Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and others have been very close. So it's been a very fun start to the season. Hopefully that can continue, but I'm really looking forward to this slate. Probably my most favorite slate in quite some time. The way the pricing is set up this weekend, you have a lot of flexibility. And I think with the way this track sets up and what we've seen in practice and qualifying, it makes for a very fun and interesting slate where you can go many, many ways. But as always, if you are new here, my name is Chris Pennell. I break down the NASCAR DFS slate each and every single weekend on this channel. I also go live on Sunday morning/afternoon answering any questions you may end up having. And I'm also part of the Osmo Network, where I'll go live before lock on their YouTube channel. I write articles for them, and I'll do some MLB shows as well this season, so that's something to look forward to in the near future. If you do end up enjoying today's free content, all I ask in return is if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will not be going anywhere, so if you think you're going to keep coming back each and every single week, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you can notify whenever I post new content. And you can leave a comment down below agreeing or disagreeing with anything I had to say in this video. You could also tell me hi or I suck. Anything will do, but any little bit helps in the YouTube algorithm, so I do appreciate it. And if we could get, once again, over 350 likes on this video, that would be absolutely awesome. We have hit it each and every single week, so I do truly appreciate the support you guys have shown me this season. And if you are wanting some extra content, access to all the premium stuff that I do have to offer, I have the entire NASCAR model, the optimizer, which can build as many lineups as you want, group settings, upload it right to DraftKings, whatever you want to do with it, the ownership projections, which are the best in the industry right now, and all that fun stuff. The Discord community that's popping 24/7. Link can be found down below for that. It is the beginning of the month, so it is the best time to sign up. Plus, this month, in a few days, we have baseball opening day, which I do cover baseball each and every single day. Got a massive Excel spreadsheet for that, including the optimizer and all that fun stuff. So lots to be excited about. Check it out if you want, or if you don't, that's fine too. But I do think you will find it beneficial if you do play DFS each and every single day or weekend. And as always, I have to mention the sponsor of the show, PrizePicks. They do make these videos possible, and you can use promo code CPEN to get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. There's no strings attached. Just pick over, under, fantasy scores, lap slide, fast laps, place differential over on the NASCAR page on PrizePicks. Very fun to play. Do offer PrizePicks projections with leverage scores that you can use if you do want to sign up over on PrizePicks. So head over to prizepicks.com, use the link down below. I think that'll be it for the plug, so without further ado, let's get into today's video. And as previously mentioned, this is the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond Raceway. There's your outline of the track. It is a short, flat track, 3/4 of a mile in length, so it is very small. 400 laps on tap force, which means we're just under 300 total Dominator points. So yeah, Dominator points are going to be quite important this week, and I feel like we haven't had a race besides Phoenix where we haven't really cared about Dominator points too much. So if you were thinking last week's strategy or the week before that when we were at Atlanta where didn't really care about Dominator points, that is completely switching this weekend. Dominators are the most important thing in your lineups this weekend, and you're going to need at least 2. And with the way the pricing is this weekend, you could easily fit in 3 to 4. Like, the pricing is super soft, and I will talk about that in a minute, but at the very least, you need 2 Dominators in your lineup, and you just need to drill that in your head this weekend. Dominators, Dominators, and Dominators. If you don't know what those guys are guys that have the potential to lead laps and pick up fast laps, and when it's a 400 lap race at a very small track, those will rack up quite quickly. So they're going to be the focal point of your lineup, and then you will need to build around them. And as always, I did forget to mention it a couple minutes ago, but if you want to join the DraftKings contest that I host each and every single weekend, we did make it a league last week. Now, I know there was a mistake. I think you all got the automatic invite where it's like Churd Pennell. So mistakes were made, spelling mistakes specifically, but hopefully that is fixed next weekend. I think there's 2 contests now. We kind of screwed it up. So, rookie mistakes running a first time contest in the brand new league. So hopefully that is fixed by next week, but just join one of the contests. I guess whichever one's the biggest, we'll call that the main, but we'll figure that out. But either hit the link in the pinned comment down below in this video, or you can find me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. I will tweet out the link, or you can comment your DK username down below. I'll be more than happy to send you the invite, but just join the league and you'll get an automatic invite every Wednesday or Thursday whenever the salaries do come out or whenever the contest is created. And of course, the live stream will be around the same time, 11:30 a.m. on this channel. So come in, hang out, ask all the questions you want. I'll be more than happy to answer them, silly or serious. But I think that's pretty much it for the preview for the most part, so let's go driver by driver. So as you can see, my overall thoughts on the pricing, I mentioned it earlier, but the pricing is insanely soft. This is probably the most egregious pricing we've had for a Cup Series race at a short track since I have ever started playing NASCAR DFS many years ago when I was in high school. So I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah, the odds were kind of crazy when they opened, where we're not getting anyone like in a plus 250 or plus 300 like sometimes we'd see in years past. But for 400 laps to have two guys above 10K, and we're talking 10-5 and 10-2, like you can pretty much play whoever you want. And at a track where dominators are going to be super important, we don't care about place differential that much, you can easily fit in like four of these guys. Like to throw in Byron, Blaney, Truex, and I don't know, Kevin Harvick, a guy that I think could be a dominator. We're talking some very cheap price points on all these guys. You don't even have to go dumpster diving. Like you can easily fit in some of these upper 6K to lower 7K guys in with a bunch of DOMs. So it's a pretty fun week. It's wide open. I would say play whoever you want. There's a lot of good plays. Obviously, we'll break down into who I like the most and some guys I'm probably shying away from, but this is definitely looking like a pretty interesting slate here. But we will start up top with Chase Elliott, $10,500. He's starting 15th. Did open up as the odds-on favorite to win this race. I assume that is going to change after people react to practice and qualifying. He is starting close to mid-pack in practice. While it wasn't terrible, it wasn't super impressive. Was 20th in the one lap, then 10th, 7th, 11th, and 9th. And there wasn't a ton of guys that ran 10 laps, 15, 20, so I don't want to put too much into it, but if guys were fast in those long runs, it is still nice to see. I still think Chase Elliott's going to be fine. I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite plays in the slate, but he's certainly a good one. And the thing is, I know he's the most expensive driver, and while he doesn't project as the best play, it's still not that hard to fit him in alongside other dominators. He doesn't have to be the guy you build around. Like you can build around Blaney and throw in Chase Elliott quite easily, and it's not that much of a restrictedness in your lineup. You can still fit another dominator if you want to. I wouldn't say Chase Elliott's a cash game play for me. He has been very solid this season. It's only a very small sample size in the 2022 season, but his numbers really aren't that bad. So I think Elliott's a fine play, but more so of a tournament guy for me. Kyle Larson, $10,200. He's starting 21st. I think he's a pretty interesting guy this weekend because he hasn't been, 2021 Larson where he's dominating each and every single weekend, but he was pretty fast in practice. Yeah, the one lap was 14th, but I don't really care about one lap data too much. It's more so what they do in the long runs, and Kyle Larson looked like he had one of the better long run cars, and that's going to be pretty important over 400 laps. The thing is, with Larson, short flat tracks really aren't his bread and butter, and I wouldn't say he's that great at Richmond. In the past 6 races here, he had 0 top 5s with 3 top 10s, which is fine, but he hasn't really been a dominator here. He did finish 34th at Phoenix earlier this season. Again, I don't think he's a 34th place kind of car, and mistakes do happen. But last year at the short flat tracks, it's a 9-race sample size. They'd have 2 wins at them, 102 driver rating, some pretty solid numbers overall, and was a dominator. So far this season, does have a win under his belt, 2 top 5s. Again, hasn't been the overall dominant Larson that we did see last year. So if this was last year Larson starting 21st at $10,200, he's probably going to be my highest owned driver. But since this is a new season, I think you can play him in cash games. I wouldn't say he's an absolute lock as far as cash goes because it's not a guarantee that he's going to get a front lead laps. And you've got like Truex starting 20 spots further up, but I'd say his chances to dominate are a lot more likely, even though Larson was just a little bit faster in practice. So Larson's a good play. He projects very well for me, but this is not a situation where it would be last year where I'm just going to have an absolute ton of Kyle Larson, even though he does project pretty well for me. So it kind of depends on what you want to go with. Do you want to trust these practice speeds, that he's going to be very fast and work his way through the field, even though he's not good at short flat tracks? Or do you think he's going to be kind of stuck around 8th to 10th place, which is a fine day as far as fantasy goes, but it probably won't be enough to be optimal unless he picks up a ton of fast laps and gets up front. So kind of have to tell yourself a story of what you think is going to end up playing out. But as for right now, he's a fringe cash play for me. Not sure if I want to throw him in yet, but that's something I'll have to decide on by tomorrow's live stream. Dropping down to the 9K range, we have a ton of good plays here. Kyle Busch, $9,900, pretty cheap, but I hate to call anyone cheap because I think everyone's cheap this weekend. Just the way the slate played out here. But he's starting in third, and if you're looking at the one lap, I mean, he was first, and I feel like people will boost his ownership just because of that. I mean, again, I hate to look too much into a one lap run, but he was fast, so I assume people are going to like that. But he was also top 10 in the 5 lap, and we know he's good at short tracks. The JGR cars are fantastic at Richmond. If you look at his history the past few years here, we're talking some of the best numbers in the entire field, and finished top 10 each and every single time. Not quite the numbers of Martin Truex Jr., but it's still pretty darn good, over 70 laps led per race and over 30 fast laps. I wouldn't say he was great at the short flats last year, more so an intermediate guy. He did finish 7th at Phoenix earlier this season, but for just a cheap potential dominator, who I'd probably view more as a tournament guy, because again, I'm playing Blaney and Cash, and I mean, I'd probably rather play Truex. It's pretty close between him and Kyle Busch, but I'm for sure playing Blaney and Cash, so Busch is looking more like a tournament guy for me, but he does grade out decently well for me, and obviously the history of Richmond is pretty nice to see. And speaking of history at Richmond, no one is going to be better than Martin Truex Jr. He's only $9,600 on DK, so he's the 4th most expensive driver here. Meanwhile, he's the most expensive driver over on FanDuel. He's running off the grid in 6th place. They put up some pretty decent practice times, and I kind of just already hinted at it, but Martin Truex Jr. is the man at Richmond. He's averaging nearly 100 DraftKings points per race here. An average finish just outside of 2.0, running position inside the top 5. He's won 50% of the races here the past 3 years, and he's also been in the top 5 each and every single time. So he's got good track position to work with, and if he can get up front, the ceiling is extremely high. So I'm definitely in on Martin Truex Jr. here. I think you can play him in cash games. Obviously, you can play him in tournaments. He was exceptional at these track types last season. And I know the JGR cars have not been that great to start the year, but this is the Toyota Owners 400. So if you want a good narrative, this is certainly a good week for the JGR cars. Do get right. And plus, Truex is running the Auto Owners paint scheme, which he seems to always be super fast in, and it looks pretty cool. I don't know if you guys saw him practicing qualifying, but I'm thinking that car is definitely going to carry some speed. And then dropping down to Ryan Blaney, $9,400. He's cheap on both sides. He's starting on the pole. We have a 400 lap race. I don't think there's going to be competition caution. There's a very strong chance he could lead the entire first stage. And if he's going to do that, as long as he doesn't wreck out of the race, he's probably going to end up being optimal. And he was blazing fast in practice, and I'm glad he got the pole because it just makes things a little bit easier, where he should set sail to lead a good chunk of laps early on. And if we look at the practice numbers, Ryan Blaney, man, tops of the chart pretty much everywhere. Was 3rd in the 1 lap, but after that, 1st in the 5, 1st in the 10, 1st in the 15. You guys get the idea. Was only beat out by Larson in the 30 lap, where Larson was 1st, and you also had Kevin Harvick. And there, not a lot of guys ran 30 laps, just I think the 4, Zoe Logano, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, and Ryan Blaney, but Blaney was super fast. Now, the thing with Blaney is this weekend is his track history sucks here. This is one of his worst tracks. In past 6 races, he has no top 5, so 1 top 10, which came last year. He's progressively gotten better at Richmond, but still 0 laps left per race and only a handful of fast laps. But we know Ryan Blaney is fantastic at the short flat tracks. He's been one of the fastest cars this season. He was fast at Phoenix on the short flat track, and he did dominate at that. And it seems like the next gen car, you can pretty much throw track history out the window. It shows who's been fast this year, who's been fast in practice. Those have been guys you've wanted on race day, and Ryan Blaney fits the mold for that. So I'm going to be a believer in that. He will be my highest owned driver this weekend, and I truly do expect him to lead a large chunk of laps. Then we have Denny Hamlin, $9,300, which is a crazy price for him at Richmond because we know he's so good here. This is his home track. Kind of right up there with the Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr.'s of the world as far as just being really good at Richmond. Some of the most laps led per race, always inside the top 5, but Hamlin has been a hard guy to trust this year because he has been absolutely awful. We know last year at the short flats, Denny Hamlin was the guy you wanted. I mean, the most dominator points, just the best numbers pretty much everywhere. Didn't have the wins, but for DFS purposes, he was the guy you wanted. And last year in this race, Denny Hamlin did crack the optimal lineup. But if we are looking at this season's numbers, we're talking 13.6 DraftKings points per race. The average running position hasn't been terrible, but he is just not finishing races. Doesn't even have a top 10 so far in the few race sample sizes that I'm using. But starting in 13th, if you think the other JGR cars are going to be fast, you can't completely dismiss Denny Hamlin. Right now, he's looking like my least favorite of the bunch once you factor in Christopher Bell, but I do like the PD upside. I just worry about him being able to get up front, and these other guys I think have better chances of dominating than Denny Hamlin, like Ryan Blaney, obviously in a much better position too, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron. So I'm probably not going to get to a ton of Denny Hamlin that I'm a little bit underweight on, but he's certainly not a fade candidate for me. And at some point, like I said, these guys are going to get right. If you think the other JGR cars are going to be fast, he shouldn't be absolutely awful, and he could end up cracking a top 5 and picking up fast laps, which wouldn't be terrible starting in 13th. Joey Logano, 9,200 bucks. He is starting at 11th. Didn't have a bad practice run. Was pretty solid overall. Was 17th in the 5 lap, but those numbers did get better a little bit later in the run. But again, you got to keep in mind, less cars were making long runs, so the numbers are skewed a little bit. But if it's a short, flat track, you got to have some interest in Joey Logano. The numbers do speak for themselves here. Very, very good. They actually kind of rival Denny Hamlin in most categories. And I am kind of viewing him as basically the same play, and they're about the same price. So it's mainly just pick your poison here. I almost feel more comfortable with Joey Logano from what we've seen so far this season of Denny Hamlin, but it's kind of a toss-up, and I will imagine I have similar ownership on both. And William Byron's a very interesting play to me. $9,000. He's starting in second. I'm going to be so high on Ryan Blaney. I'm just not sure exactly how much I'm going to get to William Byron, but they're both cheap. And they could both obviously run top 5 all day and just take turns leading laps and picking up fast laps. And it's kind of funny where both guys are just really not that good at Richmond. As you can see, Ryan Blaney average finished 17th here. William Byron 17.5. These guys actually both have some pretty similar numbers. 1 top 10, 0 top 5s, and really no laps led whatsoever. But we know William Byron, a Hendrick car, he's just going to be fast pretty much every single week, usually good at every single track type. So at this price point, I think he's a good tournament pivot off of Ryan Blaney. Now, he didn't have quite the practice numbers that Ryan Blaney had, where he was 18th in the 5 lap and 16th in the 10 lap, but I wouldn't completely dismiss William Byron. I don't think a lot of people are going to play him because you have Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman right below him, and then you have obviously, Blaney, Hamlin, Truex right above him. So he's kind of in that weird spot where I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership, but it'll completely write him off. Not a cash play for me, but I do think he's viable in tournaments. Dropping down to the 8K range, I'm sure the guy we've all been waiting for, but it's Ross the Boss, $8,900 over on DK. And yes, the price is up, but I mean, if he was $10,000, I would probably say, you know what, that's probably right from what we've seen so far this year. So I still think there's a discount on Ross Chastain, but he's going to get done everywhere, whether it be a super speedway, an oval, a road course. He is just putting up good finishes and finally got his first career cup win last week at COTA. 5th in the 5 lap in practice. Didn't get anything outside of that, so not a ton of data to work with. But you have to assume he's going to be fast. If you look specifically at the 2022 season, the recent track history, you can just pretty much throw those out the window. Did finish second at Phoenix earlier this season, but for the 2022 season, Ross Chastain averaging the most DraftKings points per race, the best average finish, nearly the best driver rating, does have a win, 3 top 5s, which is more than anybody, 3 top 10s, and I am excluding the Daytona 500, so if you're wondering why some of the numbers might be different from what you're looking at on other sources, that is the reason why. But no reason not to like Ross. That is 4 straight optimal lineups, and wouldn't be surprised if he makes that 5. So I'm all aboard the Ross Chastain train. Is starting in the top 10, so there's not a ton of PD upside, but I don't care. There's a good chance he could contend for a top 5 and potentially win this race. Christopher Bell, $8,700, another one of my favorite tournament plays, I guess, on this slate. I'm hoping people kind of get away from him because he's priced right in between Ross Chastain, who everyone's going to play from last week, which deservedly so, he should be played. And then you have Alex Bowman starting in the very back, which he's got top 10 upside in a Hendrick car. So if you're not going to completely load up on the 8K range, Christopher Bell hopefully gets a bit overlooked. And again, the Toyotas have struggled this year, but I do think they're going to bounce back. They were fast in practice, and Christopher Bell was very fast in practice, which was really nice to see. He was second in the 5 lap, 4th in the 1 lap, 3rd in the 10 lap. Didn't get anything in the 25-30 lap range, but again, kind of smaller numbers of sample sizes once we got outside of the 10 lap range. But I love Christopher Bell at short flat tracks. He's very good at Richmond. It's a small sample size for him in the Cup Series of Richmond here, but his average finish of 7.3 and averaging nearly 60 DraftKings points per race with also 2 top 5s. Also dominated 1 here in the Xfinity Series, and any single time he had a short flat track. Christopher Bell, it needs to be on your radar. Looking at last season, it's a 9-race sample size. An average finish inside the top 10. I believe we're also adding a race from this season in Phoenix as well, but 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s. Just no reason not to like Christopher Bell. The practice times were nice. I know he's kind of expensive and he's starting close to the front. And people will much rather want to click on Chastain's name over Christopher Bell. So I do think Bell is one of the better tournament pivots on this slate. Then you have Alex Bowman, $8,500. He's starting all the way back in 28th, and he did win at Richmond here last year. I mean, I know it was a very slow qualifying time. If you look at his numbers in practice, didn't get much out of it. I guess he doesn't really like his car too much. Was 23rd in the 5 lap, 26th in the 1 lap. But we're talking about Alex Bowman. He's in a Hendrick car, starting at the very back. He has been very solid this season. Hard to imagine he's not going to be contending inside the top 15. And maybe at the end of the day, if his car's right, we're talking a top 10 finish. And if that's going to be the case, starting all the way back in 28th at only $8,500, I would take that all day. If you are playing cash games, I would highly recommend to get Alex Bowman in your lineup. Chase Briscoe, $8,400. He is starting in 4th and kind of in a tough spot here because I like Chase Briscoe. He won at Phoenix earlier this season, and he's been kind of like Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, where they've been fast just about everywhere so far this year. They put up a P5 in the 1 lap, but then P32 in the 5 lap, and then after that, didn't get much data to work with, but he is in a tough spot for me DFS-wise just because there's not a lot of room for error out of him starting in 4th, but we've seen time and time and again where these guys that are starting near the front that look like kind of rough plays on paper, they've been hanging up front, and sometimes they even get up front. We've seen that from Chase Briscoe a couple times this season, so even though he's starting close to the front inside the top 5, I would not cross Chase Briscoe out of your player pool. He's someone I'm still going to end up playing, and I juiced up his numbers a little bit just because, like, from what we've seen in the next gen car, we're still new to this, so it's kind of been a little bit tougher to project than seasons past. Because if this was last year and Chase Briscoe starting 4th, it's like, yeah, he's going to finish out the top 10. I'm probably just not playing him. But this season, it's completely different, and I'm still wanting to play some Chase Briscoe. And if you want to get off the chalk, he should be lower owned than Alex Bowman. I have not yet read my numbers, but he's certainly a pivot. And if he stays in the top 5 all day, picking up fast laps, maybe gets up front, he'll be a better player than Alex Bowman. Then you have Tyler Reddick, $8,200, super cheap on DK, up to $11,000 over on FanDuel. It sounds a little bit more right to me than $8,200. I mean, Tyler Reddick's been fast just about everywhere so far this year. He's starting in 16th. His odds opened up at 1,200, which is right on par with Denny Hamlin, pretty much right there with William Byron. Like, that's pretty impressive. For whatever reason, DraftKings put him all the way down at $8,200, which makes no sense to me. I'm all about Tyler Reddick here. Now, what is concerning me a little bit is what we saw in practice. 22 in the 1 lap and 24th in the 5 lap. Again, not a huge run here, so I hate to put too much into it, but I was thinking we were going to see a little bit more speed out of him, but you have to imagine he's going to be fast, and if he's going to be as fast as he has been in recent weeks, I mean, $8,200 starting 16th for a guy that has top 5 potential and a guy that typically picks up fast laps, hard not to like Tyler Reddick. So again, there's just so many good plays. I don't want to call him a cash game lock or anything, but he's certainly on my radar for cash games, but especially in tournaments, I'm loving Tyler Reddick. It's just there's so many good plays. It's like, yeah, I love Tyler Reddick, but there's also Bowman, there's also Bell, there's Chastain I like, there's a guy right below him I like a lot, Kevin Harvick. So not a lock by any means, but certainly one of my more favorite plays on the slate at that price point because the upside is certainly very high, and you get some extra added PD in there starting in 16th. But Kevin Harvick here, $8,000. He was very fast at Phoenix. Honestly, I thought he was going to dominate and win that race at one point. His car just looked really good, and he's just too cheap this week, in my opinion. Starting in 7th, you don't get a ton of PD upside, but the car was strong in practice. We know he's very good at Richmond and finished 6th at Phoenix earlier this season. Very good at short flat tracks. We know Kevin Harvick wasn't great last year, but he actually excelled in the short tracks, especially the flat ones. Average finish inside the top 10, running position inside the top 10, good driver rating. So, I mean, Kevin Harvick's looked pretty strong so far this year, and the Stewart-Haas cars have been kind of strong overall, so I can definitely get behind some Kevin Harvick here. I think he's got a shot to dominate, top 5 potential, and he's only $8,000. It's not like we're paying $9,500 for the old Kevin Harvick, so I will be certainly buying low there, as I'm sure most people will. As far as cash games go, kind of a fringe cash play for where he's starting. Reddick gets you more place differential upside with similar finishing position potential, but still a great play nonetheless. Kurt Busch, $7,900. He is once again starting in the back, which seems like he does each and every single week. Didn't last week, but man, I swear he's been near 30th place like almost every single race so far this year. He's a fine play. I mean, 14th in the 5 lap, 8th in the 10 lap. He's got top 15 potential pretty much just about everywhere. Looking at his numbers at Richmond, average running position around 15th place, average finish just inside the top 20. I mean, I'd be very shocked if Kurt Busch is not inside the top 20 by the end of this race. And he got 5th place at Phoenix. So I know the Toyotas haven't been easy to trust this year, but he has been kind of solid just getting good finishes. He's getting a little bit lucky. The running position's a lot worse than his average finish, but sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But yeah, he's a veteran driver, should have top 15 upside, and for where he's starting at that price, it's fine. Daniel Suarez looks like a decent tournament play, starting in 14th. The Team Trackhouse car has been very fast this year. Did finish inside the top 10 at Phoenix. The only problem would be the starting position, but again, I could see him holding that, even maybe improving upon that by the time the race is over. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets the top 10. If Chastain's going to be fast, I have to imagine Suarez will have some speed as well. So I think he's a fine pivot off of what should be a decently chalky Kurt Busch. But with how many good plays there are in this range, I don't think anyone's going to be extremely high on, maybe outside of Alex Bowman or Ross Chastain. Eric Almirola, $7,700, kind of a similar play to Suarez, where they shouldn't have a ton of ownership, but any single time we're at a short flat track, you can sign me up for Eric Almirola. I mean, the past 9 races at these, he's got an average finish inside the top 9, typically contending for top 10s. He's pretty good at Richmond, and he did finish 12th at Phoenix earlier in the season, but the starting spot's the only rough thing here. He's a similar play to like Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick. And again, the PD upside's not great, but any single time we're at a track like this, I always want to get some Eric Almirola exposure, and looking specifically at Richmond, running positions at the top 12 and average finish kind of right there as well. I mean, again, starting 10th, so there's not a ton of upside, but with the way these next-gen cars are, we usually have a mid-range guy get up front and dominate, and who's to say it can't be Eric Almirola. Eric Jones, $7,600, pretty cheap over on FanDuel. I feel like I'll have more of him on FanDuel than I will on DraftKings. He's starting P5, and with the lack of place differential points over on the FanDuel side of things, I feel like he's a better play over there. DK, he's not someone I want to completely fade because I'm still having nightmares of what he did to me at Auto Club, where I full faded him starting, I think, in 2nd, and he just stayed up front all day. He let some laps, was fast, and in case he does that again, I don't want to full fade Eric Jones. He's a little bit more expensive this time around. But do not like again, if this was in years past, I am not playing Eric Jones, but with the way it's been this year, I think you still have to play some Eric Jones. Obviously not a cash play for me, but still someone I want to get a sprinkle of in tournaments in case he does what he did at Auto Club. Brad Keselowski, $7,400, and I probably should mention with Eric Jones, he was fast in practice. Not a huge sample size there, but P3 in the 5 lap and P6 in the 1 lap. But anyway, good and bad to Keselowski here. Again, if this was years past, sign me up for Keselowski, but he's just been so bad this year. I know he had a decent finish at the road course last weekend, but he was running in the very back the entire day. He just survived carnage somehow, but he's starting in 19th. He's cheap. There is some upside here. Practice numbers weren't super impressive. P16 in the 5 lap, the 9th and 13th, and the 10 and 15. I mean, he might be a top 20 contender. It's just so hard to trust Keselowski. The problem is he's so good at Richmond, so good at short flat tracks, but he finished 23rd at Phoenix and typically good at Phoenix as well. So I think that's kind of the telling sign there. He's going to be a fringe top 20 guy. I am probably not going to get to much Brad Keselowski. As much as that pains me to say at this price point at a short flat track, I just don't think I can do it. Austin Cindric, $7,200. He's starting in 20th. Another guy I'm really not that fond of. Practice numbers weren't super impressive. And I mean, yeah, we have some history here at the Cup Series, but it's not something I can really put too much into because I was in the 33 car, not in the new 2 car with Team Penske that he's in this year. He did finish 24th at Phoenix earlier this season. It's just outside of Daytona, Austin Cindric hasn't really impressed me too much, so I don't think I'm going to have too much Austin Cindric. And then dropping down to a guy I have a ton of interest in this week, it's going to be Austin Dillon here, $7,000. Starting all the way back in 25th, and the practice times weren't super impressive, similar to his teammate Tyler Reddick, where they were in the mid-20s in practice. But, when pricing dropped, I was like, well, we're going to have a very chalky Austin Dillon because I'm not sure if it's sneaky or anything, but he is very good here. I mean, talking average finish of 10th place, running position not too far behind, not like he's luck boxing into good finishes. And I'm sure we all remember the night race where Austin Dillon got up front here at Richmond. It was dominating. Like, he's going to have a fast car here more than likely. In the past 6 races here, inside the top 15 every single time but 1, 4 top 10s and 1 top 5. And I just have a hard time seeing him not be a top 15 driver by the time this race is over and starting all the way back in 25th. He's going to be that popular guy in the back that's pretty cheap and just underpriced where people are going to play him. He's going to have some high ownership, but I think it's something I'm going to eat. Like, I don't think there's a good reason that Austin Dillon should be cheaper than Cindric, Keselowski, Eric Jones, and maybe I can understand Daniel Suarez because he's been solid this year, but Dillon just seems about $600 to $1,000 a little bit too cheap this week, so I'm definitely going to buy low on that. And then dropping into the 6K range, we have Brad Keselowski's teammate at RFK, Chris Buescher, $6,800, starting at 18th, a very similar play to Keselowski, although I feel like I can be a little bit more confident in Chris Buescher than Keselowski, as odd as that sounds. Did have somewhat better practice speeds, I guess in the 5 lap where he was 15th, compared to 16th, but then the 10 lap was in Keselowski's favor, so it's hard to put too much into that. And Buescher does not have the greatest history here at Richmond, but I don't really want to play either. I'll play some Chris Buescher, but when you have guys like Dinger starting 8 spots further back. You have Pennell starting in 32nd. I just feel like these guys can all end up around the same spot. I just don't see myself playing too much Chris Buescher. Play a little in case he has top 15 upside, but I'm not going to be overly excited about playing Chris Buescher. AJ Allmendinger, $6,700, starting in 26. Got screwed last weekend if you played him. He was the best play on the slate for a while, and then at the very end of the race, Bowman, Chastain, they all got together, and Dinger got the short end of the stick there, and I forget how many points he had, but I think he finished with -3 at the end, even though he was just crushing it. So my heart hurts for everyone that had him. I had him too in plenty. I mean, it helped the lineups I didn't have him in because he was very chalky, and it ended up being a decent day at the end of the day. But man, that definitely sucked for my single entry lineups that had AJ Allmendinger in it. And he did finish 20th at Phoenix earlier in the season. His practice numbers, while they're nothing to be too excited about, was 21st in the 5 lap and 11th in the 10 lap, so it certainly could be worse. So AJ Allmendinger, I think he's a fine play starting at 26. I mean, not exciting, but just cheap PD. Michael McDowell, $6,600. He's starting in 24th. 34th in the 5 lap in practice, which doesn't get me too excited. Not a great track history here at Richmond. And if you're looking at the short flat tracks for Michael McDowell since last season and this year, 27th at Phoenix, and then just kind of straight ugly 20s here. I mean, 17th at Nashville, but not going to be super excited about playing Michael McDowell. I'd rather play Stenhouse, $6,500, starting in 32nd. Does have decent track history here at Richmond. Typically a top 20 guy. They finished 20th at Phoenix. He was just stuck in the back all day. Couldn't get it going. I do have fears that could happen once again for Stenhouse. Looking at last year's numbers of the short flats, we're talking an average finish inside the top 20. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if you're looking at practice, I mean, 27th in the 5 lap, and then for some reason the 10 lap's not showing up, but then 9th, 8th, 6th. But you got to keep in mind barely anybody ran those, so that's why they look so good. So you got to be careful with Stenhouse. Not like a cash game lock cheap play or anything, but he is a viable cheap play in the back if you need some PD upside. Justin Haley, $6,300. Be careful here because I know what you're thinking. You're probably going to want to go all in on Justin Haley, but he does have to do a pass-through penalty to start this race. And this is not like a 2-mile track or super speedway where you can make that up quite easily. This is a short track, 3/4 of a mile. He is going to go a lap down, and there's a chance where he's just not in the lucky dog spot at any point in this race, and he's just stuck a lap down running in P32 all day. So that's the concerns. If he did not have to do a pass-through penalty, I am probably playing like 60-70% Justin Haley, but that is not going to be the case. So you have to be very careful here. Temper your expectations. I'm giving him a mid to late 20s projected finish, my projections. If that was not the case for the pass-through penalty, we're probably talking the mid to late teens to the early 20s as far as his projected finish. So I'm definitely a little concerned there. So just be careful with Justin Haley. I'm probably not going to play him in cash just because of that, because the upside could be very limited if he's just screwed all race a lap down. So just be very careful with Justin Haley. Cole Custer, $6,100. He's starting in 12th. Probably not going to play Cole Custer. I mean, he was 10th in the 10 lap and 19th in the 5 lap, which is not terrible for guys down here. The problem is he is starting 12th. I like the other Stewart-Haas cars, though, so I'm not going to completely write him off, but definitely going to be one of my lower-owned exposed drivers. Bubba Wallace, $5,100. Like, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference between Cole Custer and Bubba Wallace. And I mean, Wallace is starting in 29th compared to 12th. So it's like, why not just give me a Bubba Wallace with all the PD upside? Because he's a lot safer of a play. And I totally agree with that. His numbers at Richmond aren't super impressive, and short flat tracks really aren't his forte or anything. But I feel like there's a good chance he's going to gain some spots in this race, and he's below 10K, like nearly free this week. Harrison Burton, $5,700. He's starting in 17th. I mean, the equipment's not terrible with the Wood brothers. 13th in the 5 lap. The problem is he's starting 17th, so it's like the upside is very limited, and I have him projected for a mid-20s finish, I believe, so it's like, yeah, I mean, that's better than a lot of these guys down here, but he's starting 17th, so, his floor is not nearly as high as some of these other guys. Todd Gillen kind of in the same boat where it's going to be hard to click on their names when they're starting so far up. Like, I'll maybe play a few, but I'm talking about a guy that was 29th in the 5 lap, and it is hard to see so much upside there unless there's a lot of carnage, which I'm not really expecting at Richmond. You have Corey LaJoy, Ty Dillon, both pretty much the same play. 20th in the 5 lap for LaJoy, 22nd in the 5 lap for Ty Dillon. I'll probably just split my exposure on these two. I feel like they both can contend for top 25s, and they're starting about 5-6 spots further back. So they're fine, cheap PD plays. If you can nail your dominators, you'll be fine just throwing one of these two in as long as they don't wreck out. Greg Biffle also has to do a pass-through penalty with Justin Haley, and I would much prefer Haley over Biffle. I mean, Haley's going to at least have a fast car. Fast-ish car, I should say. Biffle is probably just going to suck all racing, probably finish last, to be honest, so I'll not be playing Biffle. Landon Castle, decent practice as far as the 10-lap goes. He was P14, but keep in mind, not a lot of guys ran 10-lap runs. If you're looking at the 5-lap, that was P30, so starting 23rd, it's like really hard to get to Landon Castle. Cody Ware, probably not going to play. BJ McLeod, not going to play. He sucked all year, super slow. They had the worst speed in the 5-lap. And then JJ Yaley, at the time of recording this, I don't think he had a price on DraftKings, so I just threw him in Garrett Smithley's price, assuming they just give him the same price tag. So either way, I'm not playing him, but just to let you guys know, this might not be his actual price point. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So if you found it helpful, entertaining, informational, or whatever, in any way possible, make sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. And don't forget, it is the beginning of the month, so it is the best time to sign up over on Patreon if you do want access to the extra content. And plus, we are getting baseball in just like a week, and I'll be posting content every single day on YouTube for that, and I'll have the massive baseball model posted with the optimizer and all that fun stuff. And if you want to join the Discord community, there's a cheaper option just for that, but it is included in any Patreon package that you do sign up for. And if you like the free content, I do think you'll like the extra content over on the site as well. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. I do make these videos possible, and you can head over to prizepicks.com, use the link down below, and use promo code CPEN to get that instant deposit match bonus up to $100 for first-time users. And don't forget to check out the live stream on Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. sharp. I will see you there, and I'll be on the Awesemo Live Before Lock show at around 2:30. But yeah, I think that'll be pretty much it. Super fun slate. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I wish you all the best of luck on Sunday.